Rod was on the line and he was saying we are forgetting about the Constitution, that we are a country of laws. Federal law usually supersedes state law unless federal law doesn't mention what state law is addressing.
Supremacy clause.
Yep. And so here we are in a country where states are literally going against federal law that has to do with securing our nation. What do we say to the people who, like myself and most of the people I know, say the immigration problem is huge because Democrats want them to come across the border for their votes, but they expect the middle class earner to pay for everything that these people want. And when the people who are on the stage, the Democratic people running for the Democratic nomination, raise their hand to say we should be paying the health care for all of the people who come into this country illegally.
So this is one of those things, the president, made a joke about this, who wants to lose an election by posting the New York Post cover yes. where they all raise their hands to give health care to illegal immigrants. And here's the issue, and we've talked about this. Look, everyone is trying to find that opportunity to maximize their freedom. Obviously here, when you're a citizen, you get health insurance, and we have a system that obviously we still need to reform. Obviously, Obamacare did not help. It created even more problems, as we've talked about countless times. And here's what happens when you have individuals, i.e. illegal immigrants, that come here, that flood our hospitals, that flood our schools, etc. What does that do? From an economic and financial standpoint, what has to happen? That cost has to be captured in some way, and that means those that have insurance, like you or me, have to cover those that do not have insurance, which means you're not only paying for those services that you've covered, but the services of those that have not been paid for. And this is why this situation is it's a very complicated situation, because do you want to turn someone away who's dying? No, of course not. However, you don't go to the emergency room for something that you can go to a family doctor for. And that's unfortunately what's happening, because if you don't have insurance, or if you don't have the money to pay a doctor, obviously, they're going to go to the emergency room or urgent care to do that. And if they can't pay for it, that cost is captured somewhere else. And this is why this has become a very complicated issue. And think about this. We're living longer because we have technology and medication that can deal with other illnesses that in decades past we have not. So this is something that we need to work for. But the problem is one party just wants to jam down single-payer socialist medicine, which obviously creates a necessity. Look at all these other countries. Canada is a perfect example, right? Canada makes a determination of whether or not you're worth it to invest, quote unquote, on something.
Your productivity.
And on top of it, the idea of, okay, if you're, let's say you're 65 or 70 years old and you need a hip replacement, and they say, well, how many years are you going to actually get out of this for this costly procedure? That question is asked instead of here. We do it because it makes our lives better. It raises our ability to have a more fulfilling life.
That's right. And the quality of life is very necessary to the people that live in this country.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi in particular, who I have a hard time still saying Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and we need to change that in 2020 by flipping the House back to the Republicans, is she talks about quality health care. And part of the issue with Obamacare is having 8 to 10 mandatory things that needed to be covered. So What does that mean? Health insurance companies that write up insurance plans, they have to cover their risk, just like in any business. So they have to assume in some calculation how much is actually going to be used, the utilization factor. So what happens? You're going to pay for all those things, whereas you can't customize in the past. And the idea of children being on, or young adults being on their parents' plan until they're 26, okay, fine. Why can't it be flipped? If there's a young person that's 24, 25 years old or whatever, why can't they have their parents on their health care plan? You don't have that.
No.
And obviously the debate on whether or not, Kamala Harris is trying to say, no, employers should get rid of health insurance altogether.
Yeah.
I mean,
180 million that are now covered by their employer's insurance. Yeah, you're going to take that away from them? I don't think so, Kamala.